So, you decided to click on my Global Citizen video, Mr. Bond. All jokes aside, welcome to my Global Citizen video, in which I tell you about the 4 pillars of becoming a global citizen, and I also tell you about my semester. We'll start with my semester first. So, this semester was pretty successful for me. I auditioned, I got a call back. I didn't get a role though. I went to New York and I crossed off going to a Broadway play off my bucket list. I made a lot of new friends this semester thanks to the Global Scholars Program, and well, I joined the Global Scholars Program. And that's the reason why I'm making this Global Citizen video. So, in the class, the Global Challenge, which I had to take, I learned what it means to be a global citizen. And to be a global citizen, not only do you have to be open and receptive, you have to have a passport in your mind. And when I heard that the first day, I didn't really get it because, well, I'm a very literal person and a mental passport seemed a bit redundant to me. However, after this semester, I can say I think I sort of understood it a bit better. So, it's a key part of becoming a global citizen, and, well, key parts of becoming a global citizen are these 4 key pillars: opening your eyes, opening your mind, opening your heart, and opening your hands. We'll get into the first pillar, opening your eyes. Now, we need to acknowledge something. We as Americans live in a very individualistic society. It is very normal here to move out once you turn 18, and it's almost expected by older generations, regardless of the economy. And we're very self-centered here. We're just not aware of the world around us, both physically and, I mean, on a global scale, we're also not aware. I mean, talk to an American, like a normal American, most of the time, they wouldn't be able to point out Albania on a map if you asked them. They wouldn't be able to point out Somalia. It's important to acknowledge that we Americans just aren't aware. And it can be a little disheartening to acknowledge, I'll admit, but once we acknowledge the fact that we aren't aware, we can start practicing opening our eyes. Now, opening our eyes physically is not very hard, but it's more of a mental thing. You have to choose to be conscious of the world around you, to utilize all 5 of your senses to acknowledge everything around you. The sound of wind blowing through leaves, the feeling of sun on your skin, the way a guy's shoes looks, or the smell of fresh baked bread. Those senses are notable because we're choosing to acknowledge them instead of letting them pass us by as merely day-by-day circumstance. It's being aware and conscious of everything around you and choosing to acknowledge it in your head and make a mental note of it. I'll admit, at the beginning of this semester, I wasn't very good at opening my eyes. Between classes, I would put in my headphones and I would walk to my next class and do nothing else. I wouldn't use the time to take in the sight of how green the trees are or the look of snow. We had snow at one point and I didn't even realize until the next day. And that's because I wasn't opening my eyes like I was supposed to. It's important to open your eyes and be aware of the world around you. Now, after I was told to open my eyes and write in my reflection, I started taking in the world around me. I noticed a girl's pink fluffy boots. Those were cute, by the way. I noticed a guy's, frankly, stupid Minion shirt. I'm allowed to call it stupid because I had the exact same shirt in my closet. And I wouldn't have noticed those sort of things if it wasn't for Dr. Ellier telling me to open my eyes and acknowledge the world around me and write about it. And now I take the time to acknowledge everything around me. But being aware of the world is only one step in becoming a global citizen. it's not enough to be aware. You also have to practice the second pillar, which is opening your mind. Now, it's fine and all if you're aware, but you have to be willing to take in all of that stimuli, and you have to be willing to not only create a perspective, but be prepared for that perspective to shift or possibly be changed entirely. Now, a lot of people who say they're open minded are potentially the most closed minded people of all, in my experience anyway. I believed myself to be very open minded, but when I went on that study abroad trip to Mexico, I had all of these prejudices and preconceived notions of what Mexico was going to be like. But when I went to Mexico, that perspective was shifted because I was completely wrong. I had to change my entire perspective because I thought Mexico was honestly a dangerous country, but frankly, it wasn't any more dangerous than Troy is. And it's necessary to be open to your perspective changing, but also you have to be open to other perspectives that people are giving you. Um, when I have a lot of different conversations with people both within the program and out of the program about religion because uh, I don't practice any sort of religion, but I've had many conversations where I've had a preconceived notion of how Christianity is practiced, and I have a conversation with someone who practiced Christianity, and I mean, my perspective has changed because I was wrong. And it's necessary to open your mind to differences in the world, not be judgmental. That's ultimately what I'm saying. You can't be judgmental from the get go and share that judgment. It is judgment that leads to people being closed minded. And frankly, I think it's wrong to think that things are weird. Like, why does it matter if it's weird? If we live in a country where we have the freedom to think, like, to like let people practice what they want. And I just think we should be less judgmental, and I think we should be a bit more free, and we should practice mindfulness and think and make the choice to not let it affect you. If you choose to practice mindfulness and not only be aware of the world around you, but the differing perspectives around you, and you can choose to put yourself in other people's shoes and to see situations and problems from their perspective, it will only lead to your mind being opened up more. And that judgment I was previously talking about prevents connections from being established because you thinking something is weird immediately spins a negative tone on any sort of interaction you have with a person. And in my opinion, I think it's important to just be open. But I will say that is only internal. Opening your heart and your hands is when it starts going out into the world. Now, opening your heart. This is when, as I said, it starts going out into the world. Opening your heart requires you to establish connections with people, no matter how different they are. Of course, you'll have disagreements with people. There are some people you just won't make connections with, right? But opening your heart specifically is being open to the other perspectives, but also being open to putting in the work and establishing connections with other people. It is appreciating the differences between you and other people. It is understanding those differences are what make your connections so strong. My strongest connections are with people who I don't share every single trait with. A lot of my friends don't share my skin color. They don't share my upbringing. They don't share my lack of religion, etc., etc. And it is necessary to be willing to open your heart to other people so that they can open their hearts back and you can create that connection with other people. And it is through that connection that uh, you can uh, really like let other people learn from you and you learn from them. I like let's say debating or arguing. They're not the same thing, of course, but to let another person understand your point, if you go into an interaction saying, oh, well, I'm right, you're wrong, I'm not going to hear your point out, that's not conducive. They're not going to hear you out, and frankly, it's set up a bias against your point and against your future points. The best way for someone to listen to you is for you to hear their side and say, well, I hear you. There are some things I disagree with, but I'm listening to you. That's what the greatest of connections are. You listen to each other. And it is through listening to each other and understanding those differences you have and those disagreements, when you solve them maturely and with grace, you come to more compromise a lot easier than if you go into an interaction being stubborn and refusing to change your side. I say all of that to say that connections are important, and opening your heart allows you to make those connections. Okay? Now, connections are great. They are a core part of being human since we are social creatures inherently. However, we still haven't gotten to the fourth pillar, which is true action, which is opening your hands. It is through those previous three pillars that you actually take initiative and you find solutions through collaborative effort. Opening your hands is specifically taking the time to do something to help alleviate a problem, even if your impact isn't going to be the final solution. A great example is volunteering at a food bank. Or in my case, I created jewelry for charity events, or I volunteered in a restaurant for veterans in order to help fund the organization so that we can still provide care to veterans. And it keeps, though the impact may not be huge, it's still important to have an impact. Though it may seem like a drop in the ocean, it's still having an effect on those closest to you. Like, problems like homelessness aren't going to be solved by one person's efforts. It is through collaborative efforts and, of course, systemic change, of course, that solutions can be found for those sorts of problems. Homelessness and world hunger are like these amalgamous, like huge problems, but if you deconstruct them and compartmentalize, you can help alleviate like one of the problems contributing to it. That's what opening your hands is. It's working towards a solution, even if it's a small solution, to help alleviate a bigger problem within the community. And it's necessary to open your hands in order to be a global citizen, because it means you're taking action. It means you are choosing to have an effect on the world instead of letting it just pass you by like the majority are. That's why it's so notable to be a global citizen, because a global citizen actually chooses to try to make a change and after they become aware of the problem in the world, the problem for people they're engaged with. Of course, you shouldn't take on like a savior complex. That is a deeply American thing, right? And not everyone necessarily needs your help, but if you are willing to help those who ask for it, then I believe it's fine. Ultimately, being a global citizen is being honest. It's being receptive. It's being open to others, and it's being kind, even if it doesn't necessarily benefit you wholly. A great example Dr. Relier brings up is a girl came up to him and asked him like for money. I assume, if I remember correctly, it was like a homeless girl, and someone laughed at him saying that he got scammed. Well, to him it didn't matter, because what made him feel better was knowing he potentially helped her, no matter what she did with that money. Once that money left his hand, it did not matter. And I think that's the perspective a lot of people should have. Instead of just thinking about how it serves us, we should think about how we can serve others, and that will come back to us later. This has been Kylie Walker, and thank you for sitting through my video. Have a great day.